Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Happy Monday, Manic Monday. We are back. We have a great schedule this week. Super excited, and we're kicking it off with the one, the only Yolanda Tyler. What's up, Yolanda? How you doing today?
Hi, Ted. I'm doing good.
Good. I love your earrings. I told you that before we went live. You're looking
Thank
all
you.
vibrant, and I'm excited to have you on today. We're going
Thanks.
to talk about how to bridge the gap between work and play. I think a lot of us, either it's all work and no play or all play and no work. Neither of those
Totally
are really the best thing to be.
right.
So I'm excited for you to talk about it. But before we take a deep dive, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to say that I'm a mom. A lot of my journey has been because I'm a mom. I am Amaya Papaya's mom, specifically. People may know me from a business that I owned not so long ago called Amaya Papaya Play Lounge. It was an indoor play space for kids 0 to 5 years old, located right here in sunny Central Florida. I owned it for about 10 and a half years, and I sold it last year. Now I'm on a journey to help people bridge the gap between work and play. Before I owned Amaya Papaya, I was a counselor working with children and their families, teaching families to understand their teenagers more and help.
That's why Jill Gentry knows you.
That's why Jill knows me. I worked at Pace Center for Girls for
Oh, see, I didn't do enough
a long
research.
time. Yeah, I worked at Pace. And before Pace, a lot of people don't know this about me. I worked at Planned Parenthood of Greater Orlando. So
Wow.
I have a pretty solid background in nonprofit work, and I have that background in counseling where I worked with teens who I say were like me when I was a teenager, which was why I was passionate about working with them then, and why I really love working with teens, specifically girls, now. But through my most recent work, Amaya Papaya, I've really become passionate about kids, of course, um, play, of course, but then also working with women, moms specifically, but of course, everyone about play.
Why
So
play though? So I'm fascinated by this because I think a lot of us have our version or idea of what play means to us.
definitely.
But I think, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't know how to balance that. Why? When did that become apparent to you that it was super important to figure out that balance? We talk
Mhm.
about it, right? We say, "Oh, lead a balanced life," and then none of us really do it. We're just bad about
Exactly. I am not a huge fan of balance or that cliche, you got to find work life balance. I'm really not a fan of that. I'm a fan of bridging the gap between our work and our play, which to me I call a play lifestyle. I believe that people need to really plug into what they're passionate about. They need to know what their purpose is. And based on your passion and knowing what your purpose is, you'll ultimately learn how to play within the work that you do. To me, I define play as understanding community, creativity, and cognitive development for children, of course, because, we know that they play, right?
it, right?
However, for adults, it's important for us to understand those things. And then it'll help us to be able to play within this work that we do. If I can babble for just a minute, I think
Absolutely. Keep
that
going. I like it.
yeah, I think that as adults, we stuff so much of the stress that we go through every day. And being an advocate about understanding mental health is really important to me. I've seen children suffer from various types of mental health issues, but ultimately those kids grow up, right? And those kids, we are those kids that become adults. And we cliche complain about adulting all the time, right? But a lot of it is because we don't take time to take care of our mental health or understand our mental health. So for me, bridging the gap between work and play and having that play lifestyle is really understanding our own mental health and being able to work within that to then be able to relax more and ultimately play more and do what we're passionate about through our work. So
I think one of the things that struck me, what you said, I think I've never thought about purpose, finding your purpose or your passion, leading to your ability to play within work. But if I'm thinking it out loud, which is what we do on a Monday morning when I've only had one cup of coffee,
totally.
We are told if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And it's sort of like that in a funny way. But I think a lot of people struggle. They really struggle to find what their passion is, what their purpose is.
Truly. And I get it. You know, we're all trying to make $1, right? We all want to make cash so we can live this lifestyle that we want. I think it's really important that we figure out what exhilarates us, what sets us on fire, what does it take for us to accomplish a task. Do you have those nights that you're working in the middle of the night and you just keep going and going and going? And by the time you look at the clock, it's like 1 o'clock or something like that sometimes. And you're like, man, I didn't realize the time. The time went by so quickly. Because usually those things, when we get into our zone, as we call it, usually that's when we're kind of working within our passion, right? And then our purpose is kind of like our why. Like, who do we help? What problems do we want to solve in this life? Like you do these talk shows, you want to give information to the people. I see your face. You look bright and exuberant. You look really happy when you're doing this. To me, this is your purpose.
Yes.
You know, so
100%. But, you know, I just turned 30. Kidding. So it took me a long time to figure that out. But I must admit that I never really thought about it as much as I preach it now.
Right.
I didn't practice it back then. I didn't really, I knew I wanted to provide for my family. I knew I had a lifestyle that I wanted to lead. And I also knew that there was stuff I wanted to give back, but I never really sat down and said, what's my passion? What's my, I know my purpose, my why, my family, my friends, my lifestyle. I love all of that. But my passion, it took me 100 years to figure out what that was, but I never put it, like I never purposefully and intentionally sat down to think about it.
Truly. Well, I'd say start here. If you're younger, 30 or younger. At whatever age you are.
I'll check out for a minute. Here we go. No, I'm kidding.
When you're doing whatever you're doing, once you complete that task or a thing, do you feel proud about it? What are those things that you complete and you're like, woo, I did that? What are those things that you get done and you're like, I can't believe that I made it through that and I got that done? Or when you get something done, you're like, hey, look at this nice smoothie that I made today. Isn't it great? When I finish up this interview, most likely I'm going to say, hey, Ted, how did I do? Most people probably be asked, how did I do?
They do.
What are those things that you complete and you feel really proud of yourself about it? Somewhere within that, that's where your passion lies. One of the things that I do often, and one of the things that I used to do back when I worked with my girls at Pace, was I would make vision boards with them. Your vision board is a really good place to find your passion, because as you're kind of coming up with all of those things that you want to go on your vision board, somewhere within that, you kind of begin to develop the makeup of who you are and what you're passionate about.
So, yeah. And I think people get, working out, for example. I have people who tell me that that's their play.
Mm-hmm.
And so my challenge to anybody, it doesn't, I'm picking on working out people because it's not my thing, but I love all of you. But I feel like if you pick that one thing, why did you pick it? Is it truly
Right.
what you want to do? And what are you doing with it? There's a difference to me between a
Right.
hobby and a passion.
True.
And so you have to kind of figure out how to define that, but we're not given those instructions in school or college or wherever we go. We're
Right.
just supposed to clock in, clock out, work till we're 65, 70, now 80 probably, get our
Right.
gold watch and die. It's just
Right.
nobody thinks about how important that passion purpose part is.
Exactly. And I feel like that's where we begin to get into the mental health issues that I feel like we run into as people. You know, we put so much pressure on ourselves, we put so much pressure on our family members, we put so much expectation out there, of things that we expect from other people, you know? So I think that it's really important for us to, like you said, figure out what the difference is between the passion and the play. However, once you know your passion, once you know your purpose, you need to understand, how do you play? What is play to you? You know, you mentioned working out and hobbies. So, you know, for me, play is, and it would be those hobbies that you do, those things that you collect, those things that you like to learn about, the types of things that you do daily to stay physically active. But if you're doing those things, do those things make you happy as you're doing them? You know, if you're working out and you're like, ugh, you know, that might not be play. That just might be you working out so you can stay fit, so you can be healthy, you know. However, if you're a runner, I used to be a runner, I've run half marathons,
Wow.
5Ks, 10Ks. You know, I used to say I hated running, but I love running.
You had a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah, totally. So, you know, however, to me running wasn't exactly my play. My play was me running Disney races. Got it? So, me kind of training for those things was kind of keeping me healthy, training for a goal. But the play piece was the end result of me being able to practice and to get to the play. Man, I got to run through Disney so many times.
Yeah.
That was the play. That was
That's the
exciting for
play
me.
for you. That was, and I
That
think
was
people need
the
to
thing.
identify that. What are
Right.
some steps for them to try to figure it out? Because it's one thing for you and I, since we've been through it and go
Totally.
through it and we're in it all the time to talk about it. But for somebody who's listening or watching, what are some steps they can take to try to help identify what those things really
True.
are?
So my path is a little odd, if you would, and probably unexpected. So, shameless plug, I did a TED talk about this. I did a TED talk here in Central Florida for TEDx Boggy Creek. Shout out to TEDx Boggy Creek. And I talked about how we should play more as adults. And I define play as community, creativity, and cognitive development. So the first thing for me, I would say for you guys, write it down, is to find your community. Who's your community? Where's your community at? You know, right now, cliche is find your tribe, right? Find your tribe.
Yes, find
So
your tribe.
find your tribe. That's your community. Find your tribe, network, all those things. If you go to something and you network with people, usually you're networking to find a community of like-minded people, right? So in your life period, you need to figure out, who are your people and where do you find them, you know?
I think people, and I love that because I think people need to. I love that we're starting there
Yeah.
because I want to encourage people that sometimes who you think your tribe and community aren't really your tribe and community. And so you really
True.
have to evaluate the people you're hanging out with. Do they add to your passion? Do they motivate you in your purpose? And I think
That.
a lot of people are stuck
Yeah.
in that circle, and it's
Mhm.
easier to stay with what's they're used to than what they want to do. And so they don't get out of that. So identifying it's one thing, figuring out for me whether or not that's really the tribe that I need to take with me or I want
Exactly.
to be with me is critical, I think.
And a way to do that is identifying the problems that you're having and being and admitting and being congruent to understand what your issue may be.
Right.
So I've gone through a lot during this 2020, haven't we all? One of the things that's come up for me is depression and anxiety. Hey, I'm, putting that out there and admitting that because I know a lot of people suffer with those things, but they don't like to admit, quote, their weaknesses. So for me, it was for me during this pandemic, it's been finding places for me to connect with people to kind of help me through that. You know where I found it?
Where?
Through finding an international yoga community called it's a Black yoga community. I love doing yoga, and I don't see as much representation when I do yoga when I go out to places. So I've plugged into an international group of like-minded Black yogis, and I'm actually working on becoming a yoga instructor.
Wow.
I've also connected to people who love plants and gardening. Working with my plants and gardening helps my mental health. It helps me with my anxiety. Doing yoga helps me with my mental health. It helps my anxiety. It helps me to feel better. When I don't do those things, I don't feel good. When I connect with those people in those communities, I feel good.
I think it's two things. First of all, anytime you're feeling stressed and you want to work on plants and gardening, I'll give you my address because that again is not my passion, but God, do I need help.
Oh my
I think that people, what you're saying is so true, that people really do, they know what makes them happy, but they don't want to step over the line. Like, you figured out your community. You know that that brings you joy. You're not just going through the motions.
Right.
You're actually doing something that brings you real play, that brings you real, that's part of your real passion instead of just doing what someone told you.
Right. True that. And then the next thing is being creative. How do you describe your personality? How do you see yourself? And then how do you create? How do you define creativity for yourself? So many times I see people saying, "Oh, I'm not creative. I'm not a creative type." However, we're all creative. We all do something every day where we have to create, whether you create a meal, whether you create something to help your kids understand something, whether you create that outfit that you put on for the morning. We're always doing something to create. For me, I love strategizing about businesses for myself. I always have a new business idea, like no lie. Every day I'm like, ooh, I should be doing this. But, coming up with some way to be creative and writing down those things that you feel like you want to do or just things you have ideas about, because sometimes you might not be able to do that thing, but you might be able to pass that idea along to someone.
Yes. And then how about people who, I'll label them workaholics, which is that say to me, work is work. What I'm doing is that's what feeds me. Is it okay for that to be what feeds people?
I mean, sure. If your work feeds you, sure. However, if your work feeds you and you're not feeding the other people around you that are important, absolutely not. If you can include your family in the work that you do, okay, cool. However, if you're taking so much time from your tribe or your community and you're only focusing on being work creative and you're not doing anything to help your communities to thrive or for you to thrive within those communities that you've identified, then absolutely not. That's unhealthy for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think people get caught up. Like I have people who, I get accused of this, which is fine, and it's from my own family. I'm on the phone a lot, but I have flexibility with my work.
Right.
And so it may seem like I'm working 24/7, but I'm working in spurts that make sense for me.
Right.
I'm just working later than your 9 to 5, and I don't
Right.
adhere to a schedule. So I think people just you do have to find that balance though. If
Yeah.
it's making you happy, good. But you're right, including your family and your circle. One of the hardest things for me this year, because I'm a social being, was learning how to do this,
Yeah.
not in person,
Yeah.
and not going to network meetings and not hosting happy hours and all the things that I love to do. And yeah, I had to shift and pivot.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had to do this year, which is you're doing this. So talk a little bit about, before we start to wrap up, your
Yeah.
rebrand.
Yeah, I am. So ironically enough, I want to kind of touch bases on this. So the pandemic, yeah, I've had to kind of pivot as well. However, people really say to me, "You're so social. You're such a social butterfly." However, let me tell you, I've thrived within this pandemic because I love being in my bubble at my house and being able to do this. So this works for me. Um, Before I go to my brand, because I mentioned three things, which
Oh
was
yes.
community, be creative, and the last thing is continuously learn about new things that excite you. So make sure that you're learning new things that kind of help to excite you. So I mentioned earlier that I'm becoming a yoga instructor. You know, we've been presented, probably if you're online, with so many different certifications that you can get by being online now, since we're all online. Watching the TED show, you know, here you can learn lots of new things based on all the, you know, beautiful people that you bring on, and in understanding how often you learn. I love YouTube University, man. I learn lots of new things there, of
Isn't
course.
that great? I
Yeah.
think people don't realize it. People have. I love that. So that's good. I think people. Um, I have people that haven't read a book, that
Yeah.
haven't. Like, it's crazy, the lack of growing that
Yeah.
people choose not to do. Although the pandemic, I feel like everyone I've talked to picked up a new
Learning
book, picked
something.
up a new interest, figured out what their interests were. I think the pandemic, as crazy and challenging it has been a fantastic opportunity for that.
Yeah. So, which for me, I'll end on this note that you asked about. So, for me during the pandemic, it's helped me to pivot. When I sold my business last year, I started what was called place based solutions. And that was going to be, or is, a business where I help indoor play space owners or people that want to become play space owners start indoor playgrounds. However, for me, I've learned more that my passion is helping people to bridge the gap between work and play. So while I still help people to open indoor playgrounds or make their play spaces better, I also want to teach people individually how to play. I am a certified kids yoga instructor, and one of the things I used to do was teach circle time back at my old business. So I want to still teach people how to do that. I still want to do circle times with kids, but through the pandemic, I became a life coach. And so,
Woo!
yeah, so
Congratulations.
thank you. So I am really passionate about teaching adults how to create a lifestyle that's more focused on play, which I call a play lifestyle. So my rebrand is going to be Yolonda Dion. You see my website that's current. That's where you can still find me. However, you will be able to find me soon on my new website, which will be YolondaDion.com. And Yolanda Dion is me. Dion's my middle name. I've always loved my middle name. I've always been really passionate about that middle name. I've always thought it was cool. I was named after Dionne Warwick, but it's just spelled different. The young people do not
Fascinating.
know who that is. The young people are like, "Who's that?"
I
Google
know who that is. Yeah, they
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
Google it.
Google it. So through my passions, I want to teach people how to play, how to bring play into their workplaces, how they can, you know, create places to play or spaces to play, and then how they can incorporate play into yoga or, you know, stress less things. So yeah,
All right. I think we had a lot of great responses, which I know Yolanda will respond to later.
I will.
I think people are hungry for this. I think people are looking for some guidance in it. There are a lot of people who don't know where to start. You've given them some great tools, and I want people to reach out to you because I think we need to do
too.
more of this focused work so that you can live your best life and bridge that gap. Thank you, Yolonda Tyler, for being
Thank
on the
you,
show. You are
Greg.
awesome. All right, you guys reach out to her. Go to playspace-solutions.com now, and you can find her. I tagged her on Facebook, and you can find her everywhere. That was awesome. You're a joy.
And
Thank
then
you.
on Instagram, whoop, that's
Oop,
where
Instagram at playologist
I'm
underscore.
I'm on Instagram, on Twitter, and on, oh my God, Pinterest as Playologist.
All
And
of them, as you should.
Yeah, some other places too.
All right, you guys reach out. You're amazing. Jure, thanks for the intro. That was phenomenal, Yolanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, we'll see you soon. I'll be back.